Podcast. 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 Yeah, welcome to another episode of the Racer X Exhaust Podcast, brought to you by Yoshimura. We are actually closing in on episode 100. That's right, we've done this for more than 2 years. That equals 100 episodes, considering I missed a few weeks here and there. Apologies to everyone, including our sponsor, Yoshimura. Still on board, still pumping out those new Chaleo pedals. You can get them at yoshimuracycling.com. That's a flat pedal. You can use it for your BMX bike, for your mountain bike, and as I have now found out, you can indeed use it on a road bike. There is at least one person who does this, and maybe only one. Go to yoshimuracycling.com to check out that pedal for your bicycle, and also go to yoshimura-rd.com to check out exhaust systems for your bike, like the Yoshimura exhaust system that this guy used a lot on his RMZ 450s, and that also included the team when he was back running the RCH Suzuki Yoshimura squad. Ricky Carmichael, our guest this week. Yep, long legacy of great Suzuki machines with great Yoshimura exhausts. We'll get to RC in a second, but I hope you checked out something we posted on the Racer X Podcast Network just recently. Last week, we ran 3 of our read-alouds, which are stories written for the magazine, then read aloud by the author of the stories. 2 by Davey Coombs and 1 by Rob Andrews. Scroll through that Racer X Podcast Network now. I think you'll really dig that. Something new we're doing. Normally, it would be for subscribers only, but we're putting it on the Podcast Network for free this month, so you get an idea of what we're working on. And if you do want to subscribe, it's super cheap. 3 months digital for 99 cents total, or $2.99 for both print and digital. Go to racerxonline.com/subscribe. It's practically free, really, when you think of how cheap that is, but it's a limited time only, so you get in there now. And now I will get into our interview with Ricky Carmichael. I've known RC for a while, but as you'll see him allude to in this episode, things are a little different back in his racing days than they are now. And I have a lot of opinions on this. There are several pet peeves I have, but one that I have, that's right at the top of the list, is when I hear people say, oh man, I wish we could go back to the good old days when the riders were more unscripted and less vanilla and had more personality, like the 90s when riders would say whatever. If you watch the glut of all 10 years worth of races in the 90s, it is true that there are a handful of cool unscripted style sound bites. And most of the other podium interviews suck, okay? It is not fair to compare these riders to the greatest hits, like the 5 greatest podium interviews out of an entire decade. You cannot compare today's riders and every interview to that. Also, if you go back to the mid-2000s, there was so much money in the sport, and it was so competitive between 3 guys, Ricky Carmichael, James Stewart, Chad Reed, that it was incredibly tense. Now, Ricky was the veteran of that group at the time, and he and his guy, Scott Taylor from Fox Racing, they were very good with the media. They did give us time. Ricky did a good job of utilizing the media to get his message out. It's kind of like what Chad Reed knows how to do now, but Chad was not nearly as good at it back then. Carmichael had a very refined process, which always comes up after someone's been doing it for around 10 years. Chad was still new at the time, and James even newer than that. So I do appreciate, I tell this story a lot. Carmichael did give me time when I needed it. The 2007 Budds Creek Donations. Donations is a weird race, a pressure cooker. We now know that behind the scenes, Ricky was struggling mightily with his health, but I needed to get an interview with him for the TV crew on Saturday night, and he was busy, and I think he was exhausted after the qualifying races, but he carved out time and gave me everything I needed. So he always did give time when you needed it, so I'm not detracting from him at all. But I can tell you that the overall atmosphere with these guys, if you saw them on the track walk, if you saw them in a press conference, if you saw them in the pits, in an airport, it was gnarly, man. They were surrounded by more people. Riders would get chippier depending on what you wrote about one guy. If you said someone was good and they took it as a slight, and not just Ricky, but all the guys. It was just so chippy and tense back then. And I really thought we were on a natural course where it would just continue to get worse. And then by the year 2020, it would be out of hand. But 2 things I think happened that really broke that. A, the economy broke, and suddenly the whole thing, there wasn't nearly as much money. I think everyone got more appreciative of what they had. So that helped a lot to kind of just relax everybody. We're all in this together kind of thing. A. B, the internet came along as far as social media, and then I'll give full credit to my guy Steve Mathis. I think he really broke down barriers with his show. Everyone suddenly realized you could be less guarded, you could have more personality, you could just act more like yourself, and in the end, you wouldn't get in trouble for it. You would actually be heralded for it. Now there is an entire market in this sport based around riders being themselves, letting everybody know what they're like at home via Instagram, or again, when they come on these podcast shows, they're so much more regular. It's not a 30-second podium soundbite, which is still very difficult to get right. And I think everyone has embraced that. Being open, being honest, acting like you want to act and letting people just judge is the right way. But it has taken several changes in technology and culture and even the economy of the sport to get to that point. And you will hear Ricky talk about that in this interview. So even though, long story long here, even though I've been around Ricky and have been covering Ricky, I got a Supercross webcast gig in 2005. So really ever since then, I've been interviewing the guy here and there, be it as a racer or retired guy, or now, hey, you're the TV analyst, what do you think? I've never really gotten to go deep on bench racing with RC like I've always wanted to. So this was really our best chance. We dialed him up on Instagram Live last week. You might have caught it there. We've put some transcriptions up on the website of the interview, but if you're a podcast audio guy, here it is. We'll talk a little bit about the shutdown of COVID-19, but blah, 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 blah. What I really want to ask about is Carmichael's mentality when he was racing and who he was racing against and how that all worked. So I really enjoyed this podcast, and I think you will too. This is not just the NBC sports analysts talking about today's racers. Nah, we talk about them all the time. Let's allow Ricky to talk about Ricky and his racing days. Here we go.
There he is. What's up?
What's happening, dude? I just got back from a long bike ride, man. I am smoked. I'm ready for the weekend.
Dude, okay, could we just get this out of the way? You look like you lost a ton of weight. Can you please comment on this? I don't know if I've heard you talk about it. Maybe you did on your 447 show, but you're looking good. What's going on?
Yeah, thanks, man. Yeah, 40 pounds. I've dropped 40 pounds, so feel pretty good. Today was a long one. Yeah. Today was a long one, but I'm happy, man. Everything's good. Feel great for the most part, and I've kind of leveled off on my weight, and yeah, man, just doing my part. I will tell you, being quarantined at home, it's been a lot harder to keep it off. That's for
I know.
Sure.
Yes, because when you get bored, what do you want to do?
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And it's just like you're walking around and like there's a candy jar over there for the kids. You're like, get this stuff away from me.
And we talked about it real quick at Daytona. It'd be nice to think you could just go on these bike rides and just be gnarly and lose the weight. Nope, you cannot lose the weight. It involves the diet. You have to cut that stuff out.
Yeah, for me, everyone's different, clearly. But for me, it's always been more about the diet than necessarily the volume of cardio that I'm doing. Lost a lot of it just straight up by eating properly. And it's been a fun journey. I feel great. I've had to buy a whole bunch of different new clothes, sport coats for the NBC broadcast.
Yeah.
But that's a good problem to have, man.
Yeah. Well, this makes a little more sense because I could not understand in your 125 days where you, I'm sure, were training and riding super gnarly, but you still weren't a skinny guy. Yeah. So that alone wasn't enough.
You're exact. No, it wasn't. I mean, when Baker and I joined together in 2000, I mean, as much, I think I rode more before I hired Eldon, but off the bike stuff. And once I got the diet right, I definitely thinned up, but I still had to watch it, even though with all the volume of riding that I was doing and training off the bike, I still had to watch it. Yeah, it's crazy. But I think that's what really, I really believe, and I've talked about this before. I think that helped me. It helped me be stronger, mentally, because I couldn't slack on anything. It's almost like work ethic versus talent, if you will. Mm-hmm. And I had to work on it, and it didn't come easy. So it's just another thing that I had to work hard at. But it's all good, brother.
That's interesting that you say that, because I've been asking every current rider in this situation, and I want to ask you about it too. You were programmed, and these current guys are programmed every day, dig for it, try better. How can I improve? Am I doing the right things? How hard must it be for them, and how hard would it have been for you to turn it off now because they have no outlet for this? It must be so weird for them, and I would imagine it would have been tough for you.
Well, totally. And honestly, you're asking me like I'm going to be the expert. I've never been in this position.
Yeah.
No,
Yep.
no one has.
Yeah.
So I think that, what I will say is kind of jumping ahead is I think the guy that can get back into that zone, that championship battle zone that they were in after we left Daytona is going to be the guy that has the advantage. They got to put themselves mentally right into where they were at Daytona. It's going to be tough to do, but that's the guy that's really gonna take off quickly and could possibly give them the advantage. And it's going to be fun to see who that is. It's definitely uncharted waters. I couldn't imagine being in that frame of mind that they were mentally.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, pow, just shutting it down. It's kind of like, okay. I think the biggest thing that's been tough for everyone in the world through this COVID-19 pandemic, not only racers, is just the uncertainty. When the hell we going back? And, whether it's to your daytime job, to whether it's playing stick and ball sports, or, of course, what we love, motocross and supercross. So the uncertainty is what's tough, and that's what makes it hard when you're trying to practice and train off the bike. It's like, okay, we're so programmed and we know exactly what we're doing all the time. Well, this throws a wrench into the plans, and that's, it's going to be the guy who's been able to navigate that the best is going to be the dude who has the advantage whenever we start back racing.
Look, your whole 10-year pro career, 97 to 07, were there nights where you would go to bed saying, I did it, I'm good to go? Or was there always that in the back of your mind? Was this right? Did I do enough? Were you always a little bit paranoid at all times for 10 years?
Well, that's a great question. No, because the reason I say that is because a lot how I prepared mentally for the weekends was the work that I did during the week. So I wouldn't leave the practice track, or I wouldn't leave the gym, or I wouldn't skimp out on cardio.
Yeah.
Because I knew that was the key to my success, and that's what got my mind ticking. So what I will tell you is I always thought, man, I hope that this weekend these guys don't figure out how to beat me, or it was more like, man, could this be the weekend that this guy beats me and he beats me forever and he's got my number? I mean, that was what I feared the most.
It's interesting because we never saw that on the outside. Was that on purpose? Like you didn't want the other guys to know? It always looked like you had it all handled. You were never worried. Yeah.
I think I raced scared. I was scared to death to get beat. And I know, like, listen, I know it's so crazy when I tell this story now, and I never said this when I was racing. But yeah, dude, I was scared to death to get beat every single weekend. I hated it. I hated that pressure. I'm like, crap, man, I hope this isn't the weekend. And, just scared to death, and the fear of finally getting overtaken forever. And that's what kept me motivated and kept me working hard. And it was a hell of a journey for sure, but that's what worked for me. I never underestimated my competition. I always thought that I was beatable. Yes, did I think that I had a good chance to win? Of course I did. Did I feel like if I positioned myself, in the right spot and I did the work, that I had just as good of a shot to win as anyone else? Of course I did. But I never once thought that I went to the gate that like, hey man, I'm gonna kick Chad's ass, or I'm gonna kick Bubba's ass. Never did I do that. Yeah, I'm just like, well, I feel like I can beat him, but they might beat me. And that's what kept me motivated.
Yeah, that was like your fuel. I love telling this story. In 05, that race where James landed on you at Unadilla, I was standing on the side of the track. I was like pit reporter or something that day. And your mom is like dying during this moto. Like she's biting her nails. She looks like she's about to have a panic attack. And I'm like, dude, they're good. They've won a ton of races. They've won a ton of titles. They've won millions of dollars. What are they so worried about? But I feel like you guys fed off of that. Like never, ever rest on your laurels. Probably made you unhappy and uncomfortable at times, but that's what worked.
Well, yeah, 100%. That's what worked. That's what worked for me. And, that's everybody has their own thing. Some people like to come in there and knowing and tell themselves that they're the best and, no one's going to beat me. That didn't work for me because I felt like if I came in there and I had that mindset, like, you know what, dude, I'm going to win. Ain't no one beat me. And then the worst thing that could happen when you have that mindset is someone does come out and they call your bluff and they beat you. Then you've mentally just wrecked yourself. So that was kind of like my way of looking at things, and it worked for me.
Have you thought at all, oh man, what if this deal had happened when I was racing? How hard that would be to deal with? I know you haven't been through it, but have you thought about it?
Oh, absolutely. And I've thought about it a million different ways.
Yeah.
How do you balance your time between motocross, supercross practice, and then looking to the future? When we're not going to have an off season now at this point, or it's going to be abbreviated. When do you get the testing in? Excuse me. I think it's going to put a lot of the teams in a situation. It's going to be fun to see how the teams react from a a testing standpoint, preparing for 21 already. Mm-hmm. So I think the biggest thing for me would be juggling, how do I balance out the supercross portion of it and the motocross portion of it? That would, to me, be the challenge.
And also how crazy you'd probably be going not knowing.
Yeah, it's like we talked about at the beginning, just the uncertainty. It's like, what the heck do you do?
Yeah.
And that goes across the board, whether it's sports, if you have a daytime job, 8 to 5, 9 to, whatever it might be, where you have to go in and punch a time clock. I think that's the biggest thing for everyone is uncertainty. I think if you told everyone across the board in the nation, like, hey, all right, we're going to be shut down until this date. And then it's going to be open season.
Right.
Everyone could adjust for that. You're like, all right, I need to do this, or I need to not buy this much toilet paper.
Yeah.
Right? Or, buy, this is how many plates we got, cups we got, this is how much water, food, blah, blah, blah. I think that it would help a lot. But unfortunately, we're not in that. We don't have that luxury right now. So it's definitely, I will say this, and I truly believe this, Weege. Whoever wins this Monster Energy Supercross Championship in both classes, all three, the East and West 250 and then the 450, I personally believe it could be known as one of the hardest Supercross championships to win because of what they've been faced with.
Yes. When I talked to Eli Tomac, I said, can you imagine this gauntlet you might have to run? Can you use that as a little bit of motivation, like a challenge of like, okay, this sucks. This isn't the way I planned on having it go. That's not ideal. But hey, the upside is, dude, that pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, it's never going to be bigger if I can figure this out this year. Can that be a motivator?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you got to take anything you can and turn it into a positive, Weege. Mm-hmm. And I really believe, this could be. We've been waiting for him to win this championship for so long. He's been getting a bunch of crap from a lot of us.
Yep.
We know what he's capable of, and he's in a great position to finally do it this year. Could you imagine if he pulls it off this year with everything that has happened? It would be, like I said, I think it's going to go down as one of the hardest championships, Supercross championships ever to win in the history of Supercross because of what we've been faced with. And, I go back to the mid 80s, my day, and the 90s, mainly like the mid 80s, Rick Johnson, David Bailey, Johnny O'Mara, Jeff Ward days where they're just back and forth.
Yeah.
Or 2006 with myself, James, and Chad. That was tough, but we weren't facing what these guys are facing.
Yeah, you're right. Back in the 80s, 90s, they did mix in the Nationals and Supercross. They went back and forth. It doesn't make any sense to me at all now that it was normal then, but looking back at it now, it seems nuts that they just did that every week.
Well, yeah, we used to, we'd race Atlanta, then hop on our outdoor bikes, race Gatorback National, the opening round, and then the next weekend go to Daytona, and then put the MX bike away and not fire that thing back up until second weekend of May. So anyhow,
that's weird.
It's going to be fun. It's really going to be fun to watch and see just how these guys navigate it. And one thing I do want to say, and a lot of my critics are going to give me crap for this, but I think this break comes as a blessing to a guy like Cooper Webb.
Yeah, we saw you talking to him in that virtual roundtable you guys had. Yeah, I mean, he was on the ropes. It was tough for him this year.
Yeah, I mean, it was. He's got a lot of wood to chop. Let's be honest. It's definitely going to be a reach. But if he fires off, wins, the first 3 or 4 back, like I said, it's going to be tough. And it's definitely a long shot, but I can tell you, if I was Eli Tomac or Ken Roczen, I'd be like, oh man, now he's going to be 100%. Maybe he's got to fix some underlying problems. If there was a bike problem that we didn't know about that they were keeping under the vest, maybe they've fixed that now. Either way, I think he's the one that really benefits from this.
Yeah, at Daytona, there was a brief moment where he got to second place. And look, we know he's haunted Ken Roczen at the end of races a few times here and there. And I really feel like there were a few laps where Coop threw it at it like, I'm going to try to get Kenny again on the last lap like I've done before, and it didn't happen this time. He was obviously super beat up from a crash a few weeks earlier. Like you said, maybe there's other stuff going on with the bike or whatnot. That was a race where Coop normally makes it happen, and he ended up third. So they had him where they wanted him, and now they couldn't keep him there because they had to take time off.
You're exactly right. I mean, it was all but over, I think. At that point for Cooper. So this gives him a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel. And he said, I mean, he knows he's first and foremost, he's got to win. He's going to need a little bit of luck. But it's just, I mean, Eli Tomac and Ken Roczen have just been superb all season long. It's been a lot of fun to watch. And it's going to be hard for anybody to beat one of those two guys in the championship.
Now, look, you mentioned the unknown. Obviously, you're an insider. You're connected. You're a television guy for NBC Sports. Let just everybody know, and I've got my insider connections too. There are rumors of all this stuff, but you would know as much as anybody. Nothing is set. Like, no one really knows. You can be honest about that. I'm sure you don't know when they're going racing again.
Dude, I don't believe it. I don't believe what my connections tell me.
Yeah.
Until they come out with a presser and tell everybody. Yeah, I've heard all the same stuff you have about the talks coming back, and I'm all for, like if the safety precautions are in line, let's fire them back up. It could be a great opportunity for our sport, without a doubt. But we have to be very, very smart. But I will tell you this: I don't believe anything. It changes from hour to hour, day to day. All things. Talk about states opening up and restaurants and whatever. Is your business essential? I don't believe anything until they come out with the press release.
I'll take it one step further. I say until I actually have the check and I'm putting it in the bank and it clears.
Well,
that's when I'll believe it, bro.
Yeah, well, absolutely. That was like when I was racing NASCAR. The word would be, hey, man, I got this new sponsor. I'm like, well, they don't believe it until the first check actually clears.
That's right.
So, it'll be exciting to know. It'll definitely give some others some comfort, and it'll rest their uncertainty.
Okay, let's get in the Wayback Machine. We've been doing these watch parties every weekend. It's a Pro Motocross Facebook page, folks. Every Saturday we pull an old race that you can't find on YouTube. We get the archive, we play it. This year we're gonna have this weekend we're gonna have the 2007 you and James Stewart. I don't know now. I don't know how many people remember how significant that race is now. I'll put it this way: it was the last time you and Stewart raced, I think, right?
It was, yeah. You're a historian, you know that.
I appreciate it. Yeah. So that's a big. Let me just put it that way: it's the last time you and James Stewart raced. That's a big deal.
Yeah. It was. It was a good weekend. When I see that race, I had a lot of stuff going on behind the scene. I was the onset. I was getting sick. I was getting Epstein, and I was doing some testing. My kids were just born 3 or 4 months before that. Not to make any excuses. So when I see that was the first time in a race situation that I realized, like, oh, dude, I'm really ill. And I remember, like, he had me on the ropes. Like with that 2 to go, I slipped up and he pulled away, and I'm just normally, like, with 10 minutes to go, that was when I really shined, when we were going back and forth. And I just got to that 10 minutes to go and I was completely gassed. And that's when it sat in. Like, I knew the underlying stuff. I'm like, yeah, this is for real. I'm in bad shape right here. and I basically surrendered the race, and then he fell down.
Oh man,
He fell down in that right hander. I was like, holy crap, I can't believe this. So it wasn't that enjoyable to me, that race, because of the issues, and a lot of it was my fault. And I'll tell everybody, I'd save it. I was going to save it for my book, but the book that I haven't written.
Is it coming?
Probably
Is this
won't
happening?
Right. But the reason I got sick is when my kids were born. Man, we were fortunate enough to have nannies and all that stuff. But I would get up with them at night and doing 2 times a night feeding, sometimes 3, and even though I had a nanny, so as I was doing that, I would still get up then the next morning and continue my workout. And I knew that I only had, like they were born in March. I knew I only had to go through, at the time I was going to race the U.S. Open. And so I'm like, okay, I can get away with not getting that much sleep. Well, I just dug myself a hole. So I was maintaining the workload and doing everything that I ever did with 60% less sleep, and then it just pow, it got me. So wow. Yeah, when I that race was just hard, dude. I was on the struggle bus. Really, I was sucking. So yeah, he had me on the ropes, but it's fun to watch. I look back and I had much fun. I had much more fun time watching than I did that one.
Those were some good battles that you had, James, in 06 and then 07 there outdoors. Davey Coombs wanted me to ask you about passing him in those sand whoops. He said that was the most amazing thing he ever saw you do on a motocross track, which is saying a lot with 100 wins. Do you remember making the move in the sand whoops? Obviously, both you and James are pretty good in sand whoops.
Yeah, we both grew up in sand. I do remember that, and I'm most mad at myself. I passed him. I worked my tail off to get by him, and that guy isn't easy to pass. He's just so fast, and he's really good defensively. He knows what he's doing. And then I almost crashed. I went over the berm a couple turns later and just kind of gave it away. I was so mad at myself. But yeah, I totally remember that pass. I knew that I had to go to the outside and get a good run up so I could scrub that tabletop afterwards. And you know what was so cool about 06 and 07 with James and I racing together is I just feel like there's a mutual respect between the two of us. And we were able to race clean. We were able to race hard. And but it was good, fun racing. And that respect level was so high that it was fun to be a part of.
I'm impressed to hear that because the buildup between when is Ricky going to race James and vice versa had gone on for so long. I mean, literally since you were kids. And, dude, back then, those mid-2000s, the entourages, the man friends, the groups, they loved to talk trash. I'm impressed that by the time you guys finally got there that you were able to keep it clean and it wasn't so much, chippiness that everybody didn't have respect for each other. I'm surprised to hear that in a way.
Well, if you look at it, though, his entourage, was his dad, Rado, Beaker at the time was hanging around with him a lot. I think Beaker had already went to Fox. Yep. So, I was a Fox athlete, so there wasn't much that Beaker could say because he was a Fox and technically working for the same company. So I would say the more the entourage that made stuff really thick would have been Reedy's entourage, and we joke about it today. With his agent at the time, it's just there's so much chitter chatter back and forth. It necessarily wasn't the riders as much as it was the entourages. But I'm thinking.
Don't forget Ellie. Oh yeah, that's gasoline on a fire.
That's
That's right. She gets fired up.
Yeah, I ain't touching that, dude. There ain't
no exactly.
way. I wasn't going to mention her. But,
okay.
Yeah. So James and I, as far as the entourage goes, I just think the respect level is so high. And you got to remember, I've known James since, he was a little kid. And I don't, I was almost kind of declining as he was coming up. And it was definitely fun to race. He was fun to race, especially as he got smarter, and you could see his race IQ growing. He kind of calmed down a little bit. He was just a lot of fun to race, and I always felt bad for Chad because Bub's and Chad's rivalry was so intense, and Chad didn't like me. Chad didn't like Bubba, but I liked Bubba. I didn't mind Chad. I definitely respected the hell out of him, but it was always kind of like me, like Chad was the odd man out. We had this conversation in, I think, New Zealand it was, or something like that. Chad and I was, but I always kind of felt bad for you. You were like the odd man out.
Yeah, there's a variety of things. Like you were Fox guys, two American guys, however you want to put it. But it's good that you and James had that respect, because I bet if you look back at it now and it had gotten nasty or dirty, probably wouldn't be a good look to look back at it now. In the moment, anything could happen, but it's probably better to look back now and be like, we had fun with it, we respected each other, we just raced hard.
Yeah, totally, and that's exactly what it was. My last Supercross race at Orlando, same kind of thing. Just like, I mean, the Red Bud was so similar to Orlando. I mean, just back and forth the whole time, good, clean racing, and the thing about all three of us. I'll even include got to include Chad on this. I mean, we were all willing to risk it all to win. Winning was everything. We didn't look at each other. We didn't talk to each other for the most part. And it's just like, it was a race to get to the airport, to who could get on the plane to get home first, right? And then how the heck am I going to beat this guy next weekend? You know what I mean? Like that's how it was. I mean, the rivalry was so intense. You could cut the air with a knife.
I don't feel like it's quite that gnarly these days. What do you see in the races? I always say, I did the same press conferences then that I'm doing now, and I don't feel like it is as tense. It was so gnarly in 05, 06-ish. Do you feel it's different?
Yeah, of course. There's a lot more camaraderie these days. And a lot of the guys practice together.
Yep.
At the same facilities. That wasn't like that. I mean, in my day, Eldon would there's no way. He hated when Ezra would come ride with him. Now
really?
He has a whole facility with a whole bunch of guys riding together.
That's so weird.
And it's just, times change. It doesn't make it wrong, doesn't make it right. But everybody knows pretty much what everybody's doing. And that's that. But I think it has led to. That's the reason, in my opinion, so many guys can win races, because now we're seeing a crop, for the most part, of kids that have come up through facilities. Now, Ken Roxon didn't, Eli Tomac didn't, and Jason Anderson didn't. I'm sure I'm forgetting one or two, but a lot of these guys have come, have ridden together their whole life and even raced together and practiced together. So there's no secrets, and it's definitely a lot different. It's kind of comforting, I will say that, because like when you go to the track walk or you do press conferences, it's just not like, you know how it was when back in 06, 07.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, definitely times change, but in that aspect, I think it's for the better.
I'll let you go here in a minute, but I did see one question I want to ask from these comments here. Somebody said, for $10 million, would you come back and race?
10 million.
10 mil, bro.
I got 10 million. I ain't coming back. No, I'm 40. Mm-hmm. 10 million would be pretty nice, though. I mean, at some point you got to do what's right for your kids and your family. And I mean, I'm definitely doing, I'm happy with where I'm at. I'm very fortunate, but that's a real number there.
Hey, you said you lost 40 pounds. You know what they always say? Too rich, too thin. You can never be either of those. To 40 pounds to 10 mil.
Nice. That's awesome. Yeah, I hope everybody enjoys Red Bud 2007. And I always go back to, we all know the fans, motocross fans are so awesome. I mean, they go to the races because it's fun. They love it. It's just not something to do. They're loyal, they're true, they're raw, and Red Bud has some of the best fans ever, and I hope everybody enjoys it. It was a lot of fun to watch, and it was a lot of fun to be a part of.
Yep. All right, we'll have it on the Pro Motocross Facebook on Saturday. Get back to training or whatever you got on your schedule, man.
I'm done for the day. It's 5:00 somewhere, isn't it?
That's right. I like it. I'm going to say I'm done now, too. I did my job today. We're good.
There you go. All right. Well, Weege, thanks for having me on. Everybody at Racer X, appreciate it. All of my fans, thank you very much. I do want to say, everybody hang in there, stay healthy, stay safe, do your part. We'll all get through this. We'll get through this together, and keep a positive mind. It's only going to help. And I know everyone at the Carmichael crew is thinking about everybody.
All right. That's good stuff. Appreciate it, man. Yep.
Yeah. Thank you, guys.
All right. That's
Bye
Ricky
now.
Carmichael. Bye-bye.
That's a solid half hour with Ricky Carmichael. Here's what I respect about him. I know he worked hard as a racer. He changed the game with training, et cetera, et cetera. That story's been told a million times. I'm not breaking any new ground with that observation. What I always noticed with Ricky was he did get good with the media toward the end of his career, and I don't think that that was something that he necessarily was good at naturally. I think he embraced the challenge. Once he realized, this extra hard work has unlocked all these things for me on the track. I think he then adopted the mentality of, if I apply hard work to other things, can I succeed at those? And it's quite liberating to know, man, if I really put my mind to something and try to, I could turn a weakness into a strength. I think he did that with his media game. He was running circles around Chad and James as far as how he worked the media and the fans in those days when they were battling. I think on TV, I still don't know why he wants to grind like this, why Ricky wants to go on the road in a normal year 17 times in 18 weekends. I don't think he needs the money, that's for sure. I don't think he needs the notoriety. But I think he takes it as a personal challenge to see if it's something he can get good at. And he's been criticized a lot, and he knows that. And I think he really takes to heart trying to get better. And what I'm getting at here is I notice in this interview, he came packed with messages that he wanted to get out. The message about whoever can get back in that race zone is going to succeed. And Cooper Webb, this could be handing him a big advantage. He got out the idea that, yes, Eli Tomac has been criticized for not being able to close the deal on this title before. I think he knows not to be vanilla. Come with an opinion, state it, throw out some of your thoughts, get it out there. And he doesn't have to, but I think he knows that's the best way. So he's forcing himself to do it. And I just respect, maybe some of it's almost just coming natural, like it's just an instinct to try hard. But I think some of it is calculated on his part. Like, this is what I need to do to be better, and it's not going to be the easiest way, but I'm all about the better way, even if it's the hard way. And I just respect that a lot, well beyond just how much cardio work or how much weight he lost back in 2001. So thanks to Ricky to coming on. We'll have a podcast with Cole Seelig coming up here. We'll talk to him about retired life and projects that he has going on, including a new KTM that's in his garage. That'll be coming up next. But I do want to throw the shout out, of course, to Yoshimura. Get the Yoshimura exhaust system that you need for your bike at yoshimura-rd.com. And go to yoshimuracycling.com for that new Chaleo flat pedal, made in the USA, all that stuff, the exhaust, the pedal, everything else. And also RacerX, racerxonline.com/subscribe. Special deal, limited time only, $2.99, 3 issues, print and digital, or 99 cents for just digital. And it will allow you access to the audio read-alouds. Check those out on our podcast network. Also, hey, one more thing. I'm going to throw in a news nugget at the end. So if you were dumb enough to start hearing me plug Yoshimura and RacerX Online and saying, it's just getting into the ads, I'm done, I'm going to turn this episode off. You loser, you lost out. We broke some big news today on the RacerX Online site. Supercross, they were kicking around the idea of racing in May, specifically May 15th. That has now been pushed back to May 31st. It was not the teams asking for more time, and Feld was asking for more time, but I don't think it was because they couldn't get a race on or they didn't have the staff or anything like that. This would lead me to believe the reason Feld needed more time was because of Arizona, where they want to hold these races, needed more time. Now, a lot of people have indicated that for any events to come back in Arizona, or really most places, there needs to be a continual drop in the coronavirus cases. So this leads me to believe that the 14-day consistent drop in cases in Arizona did not happen, and the clock has been reset, and they, again, need 2 more weeks. I'm not sure that's why, but you just got to hope that those numbers keep going down, or this reset is going to keep happening over and over. And I don't think Feld wants to just keep pushing this further and further back. I don't think they want to call the teams every 10 days and say, we need to go back 2 more weeks. So as of now, though, the plan is May 31st, and then Supercross will get 7 races in, essentially in the month of June. and that will push the start of Lucas Oil Pro Motocross back to July 4th. Now, I will say that I do not know what track will race July 4th weekend. Of course, Redbud is the traditional race at that time, but there are so many balls in the air as far as the states and the local governments as far as which ones are ready to come back online and hold events earlier. So I'm not sure that it'll be Redbud. It could be anything. I don't know which track, anytime, any place, anywhere in July. It's anyone's guess, I think, as to which states will be most hospitable for this. So the plan is it'll be a race July 4th as of now to kick the season off. I don't know what track it's going to be. Maybe it will be Redbud. Maybe it won't. But as of now, I think the teams and the fans and everybody should just be pumped to hear, okay, there might be some racing eventually. I know that's what I want. And I'm going to stay out of the fray of if this is good or bad or safe or the right thing to do or not. Everybody's got their opinion on that, and I'm not going to unentrench someone from what they think. But I personally will be relieved if we're back at some races. Just got to figure out how to get there. Maybe I'll do a little less flying. How about that? Like I said, we've all got our different ways of coping. So there's your news. May 31st, potentially, Supercross. July 4th, potentially, Lucas Oil Pro Motocross. There's your news. Thanks for listening.